Watch Dogs Legion Review. Hello beautiful people. In this video, we will talk about Watch Dogs Legion game review. Watch Dogs Legion PS4. Watch Dogs Legion could, and probably should, be so much better than this. Following two entries that introduced and refined the open-world hacking concept across the PlayStation 4 generation, Ubisoft has stagnated in an effort to heavily promote a new feature it hasn't managed to capitalize on. The result is an experience that feels overtly familiar and dull despite the seemingly innovative mechanic at the forefront of the French publisher's marketing campaign. Watch Dogs Legion lets you play as everyone, then gives you very little reason to do so. There's simply no beating around the bush. The ability to assume the role of every single NPC making up post-Brexit London is a colossal disappointment. It works in the ways it needs to, highlighting potential recruits for DedSec with a quick glance at the sort of skills they could bring to the table, but there's hardly ever a compelling enough reason to actually deviate from the character you've already sort of fallen into playing as. Let's double back and give this some context though. Near-future London has been transformed into a dystopian surveillance state after a series of terrorist attacks brought the English capital to its knees. DedSec, the hacking collective from both Watch Dogs and Watch Dogs 2, is framed for one such attack, turning public opinion against them and forcing its members to operate in secret. You play as these tarnished characters. In fact, you could play as them all. The defining mechanic of Watch Dogs Legion allows you to change the protagonist of this story by recruiting another person off the street and then doing it over and over again. Everyone has a problem in their lives and you're on hand to solve it. This is done by analyzing the public, measuring up what perks you'd like them to come with, then completing a basic loyalty mission to add them to your ranks. In theory, the idea is to build up an army of DedSec members each with their own unique abilities to make completing the 15-hour campaign that little bit easier. Except Watch Dogs Legion never, ever provides an engaging enough reason to do so. The talents these characters come with are largely uninteresting, with most based on minor boosts to basic stats or quirky traits that have little to no impact on how you actually play the game. Why would we switch to an operative who comes with the possibility of dying randomly? They work as goofy one-liners when you're out exploring the open world, but in practical terms, the character is useless. And that's a notion that runs through the heart of far too many of London's occupants. Every single character plays exactly the same, utilizing the same selection of weapons and poor stealth mechanics no matter how unfit for combat they are. It gets to the point where even those operatives who are uniquely equipped with something useful fall by the wayside. A construction worker can spawn a cargo drone at will, but they're in such abundance that you never need to think about where to source one. An internet celebrity can call for a motorcycle whenever he pleases, but we don't need to tell you about the traffic in London to know that vehicles are very, very easy to come by. As such, it all ends up feeling like one huge letdown. Watch Dogs Legion fails to provide a meaningful reason for actively switching between characters on the fly and always being on the lookout for new recruits. Anything one operative can do, another could do just as well. When a game that so desperately wants you to constantly change your protagonist and playstyle can be comfortably beaten without engaging with the mechanic at all, there's something up. The play as anyone concept will continue to be one with potential then because Ubisoft hasn't realized it. By the way, we are gathering gamers and gaming lovers like you in our YouTube channel RAYAROZEN, so it would be nice if you join our gaming community by subscribing our YouTube channel. We upload a cool game stuff like gaming reviews, different gameplays, top 10 games compilations etc. What that leaves us with then is the same gameplay loop that has fueled the two previous installments in the franchise. And, well, it's getting far too stale. Most missions are dull affairs, consisting of sneaking into enemy territory to steal information and files through hacking. Much of what you already did to enter the base and then leave it. Seriously, RL1 button has never seen so much action. Competent controls and shooting mechanics make combat serviceable. The same can't be said for driving, providing some enjoyable moments in the thick of the action. Don't get us wrong, the campaign does have a smattering of high points that will keep you pushing through its more monotonous moments. They're just nothing you haven't already seen before. Case in point are the hacking puzzles and Spiderbot minigames, a mainstay of Watch Dogs 2 but also pretty fun in this follow-up. One complete contrast to the story of Marcus Holloway, however, is the dreadful narrative of Watch Dogs Legion. We've already touched on the initial setup because that's just about all the title has going for it, as the fear the plot would suffer as a result of the play as anyone concept becomes a reality. Ubisoft's commitment to remaining apolitical means it has to try and dance around themes so politically fueled that it's impossible not to hold some sort of opinion, and it just doesn't work. The narrative comes off so phony as a result. Just say what you think, Ubisoft, and own it instead of skirting the conversation. And don't get us started on the dialogue and accents. The fixed characters who have an actual identity get a pass, but the conversations your operatives hold with each other and the supporting cast are absolutely atrocious. An awful script means you'll be laughing at dialogue a lot more than you will with it. From ludicrous opening statements a protagonist can make to try and recruit someone to DedSec through to generally poor writing, some of the lines really are the worst of the worst. Then the lip sync is just as bad, making a mockery of any potential the script could have had in the first place. At least London looks pretty good whilst you're spouting nonsense. A good bit of virtual tourism can be done in the open world as the classic landmarks of the capital city are faithfully restored in digital form. Just ignore all the bright, definitely not political neon they've been decorated with. To be fair, Ubisoft has done a great job of putting together a realistic recreation of London, complete with 8 different boroughs that make for a fairly vast space to explore. You'll come across neat, little streets that you didn't think you'd recognize from real-life trips taken before a global pandemic, and small touches that only a seasoned Londoner could pick up on. It's a cool novelty that never really wears off. One more thing we couldn't quite get over is how much time was spent waiting to actually play Watch Dogs Legion. Lengthy load times are required to access the open world on PS4, and the same goes for fast travel and switching between characters. The game has clearly been designed with the PlayStation 5 in mind, as it pushes the current general console to its limit with multiple hard crashes back to the system's home screen when things become too much. Throw some consistent lighting glitches into the mix and the title cannot be considered top of the line in its current state. Considering the potential Watch Dogs Legion was packing prior to launch, the final release can only be chalked up as an anticlimax. Its play as anyone concept doesn't lend itself well to the sort of experience Ubisoft has crafted, with seriously lackluster character options and a narrative that went down the drain as a result. While longtime fans may find its recycled gameplay loop just enough of a reason to keep playing, those enamored with the possibility of playing as anyone and everyone will wish they never bothered. Watch Dogs Legion is the dullest of the lot. Watch Dogs Legion PS5. Technically speaking, at least, Watch Dogs Legion is an objectively better game on PlayStation 5 than PlayStation 4. It runs better, it looks better, and it loads much faster. That all does wonders for creating a much smoother experience on Sony's latest console, making sure you spend a lot more of your precious time in the thick of London's grittiest action. Watch Dogs Legion looks and runs better than ever, but it's still not particularly fun to play. While Ubisoft has pushed its other holiday release, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, to run at 60 frames per second on PS5, the same cannot be said of this lesser counterpart. London and its boroughs still run at the same 30 frames per second as the PS4 version, but at least the city looks more lifelike than ever before. Lighting really pops, particularly when neon signing and ray tracing are involved. It helps to bring more color to the mean streets of England's capital, impressively brightening surroundings during the day and keeping clarity once the sun goes down. A noticeable improvement over the last general version indeed. That carries over to visuals in general even when moody lighting doesn't try to set a certain tone. Character models actually look quite like normal humans being on PS5, rather than some of the atrocities captured on PS4 served up by the game's random NPC generator. Environments are more detailed too, especially when it comes to stonework and the more minute details that make up a location. There are aspects you may pass on admiring in the middle of a gunfight, but wrap back around and there's a lot of beauty to take in. Better yet, the lighting glitch that reared its ugly head in our playthrough on the previous general console is now nowhere to be seen. That doesn't mean the updated undertaking is devoid of any bugs, however. Vehicles and objects continue to fade in and out of existence at random, even if the act happens right before your very eyes. It's not a good look. Load times were another source of frustration on PS4, but they have been dramatically reduced on the new machine. The initial load into the open world takes just 16 seconds on PS5, a gigantic improvement over the 67-second wait on Sony's now outdated system. Fast traveling across the map can now be done in 8 seconds rather than 33, while switching between operatives take up 11 seconds of your time. That once not quite as big of a reduction, 15 seconds on PS4. Where there was a load screen or fade to black in the PS4 version, there continues to be one on PS5. But they're nowhere near as lengthy this time around. Supporting the DualSense controller is very quickly becoming an important facet of a next-gen title, and Watch Dogs Legion probably doesn't do enough to get a pass. Adaptive triggers simulate the pull of a weapon's trigger in a rather basic manner, and that's about the only implementation of the feature we could find. Haptic feedback, meanwhile, is nowhere to be seen. Ubisoft's lacking attempt to make use of the DualSense pad is disappointing, but then it's impossible to tell how much time the publisher actually had to incorporate much support. The real test will be placed upon the shoulders of next year's releases. PS5 allows Watch Dogs Legion to look and run much better, but at the end of the day, it's still very much the same game. The ability to play as anyone quickly falls by the wayside as you find comfort in a select few operatives who always get the job done, meaning the concept never finds time to develop. Every character plays the same, with menial perks and skills not enough to convince you into switching multiple times throughout missions. That's what Ubisoft wants you to do, but ends up giving you absolutely no reason to do so. And then there's the general gameplay loop, one which rests on the laurels of past entries and actually strips the experience of a lot of hacking. Gunplay is serviceable at best, exploring the open world is more frustrating than it should be with poor vehicle handling, and traversal is generally rather dull. The best thing about it continues to be the hacking puzzles and Spiderbot minigames. At least they're pretty fun. Watch Dogs Legion might look and run better than ever on PS5, but that means little when the game itself struggles to break the boundaries of mediocrity. This next-gen version remains unchanged from its PS4 counterpart as far as gameplay goes, so the boosted performance does little to hide the title's underlying issues. No matter how well it runs, Watch Dogs Legion needs to sort out how it plays. So, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do like our video, make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.